Record levels of plastic discovered in Arctic sea ice. Samples taken from 5 locations found concentration of more than 12,000 microplastic particles per liter of sea ice. Scientists have found a record amount of plastic trapped in Arctic sea ice, raising concern about the impact on marine life and human health. Up to 12,000 pieces of microplastic particles were found per liter of sea ice in core samples taken from 5 regions on trips to the Arctic Ocean, as many as 3 times higher than levels in previous studies. Researchers at the Alfred Wegener Institute Helmholtz Center for Polar and Marine Research (AWI) found fragments of packaging, paints, nylon, polyester and cellulose acetate, which is commonly used in making cigarette filter. In every sample they took in 2014 and 2015. The findings come amid growing concern about the scale of plastic pollution, which experts have warned risks the near-permanent contamination of the planet. Previous research estimated that at least one piece of plastic had been frozen into the Arctic ice over past decades, making it a major global sink for plastic pollution, many times more concentrated than the well-known Great Pacific Garbage Patch. But Dr. Gunnar Gertz, whose laboratory made the measurements, said his studies showed the problem was even more severe, with some of the particles only 11 micrometers across. That's roughly 1/6 the diameter of a human hair, and also explains why we found concentration of more than 12,000 particles per liter of sea ice, which is just 2-3 times higher than what we found in past measurements. The study was able to identify not only a record amount of plastic but also its potential source. From degraded fishing equipment to plastic pollution that has traveled thousands of miles on ocean currents. One of the study's authors, Dr. Ilka Piken, said the high microplastic concentration in the sea ice can not only be attributed to sources outside the Arctic Ocean. Instead, they point to local pollution in the Arctic. The scientists warn that implications of this level of plastic pollution for marine life and human health were unknown. Picken said no one can say for certain how harmful these tiny plastic particles are for marine life or, ultimately, also for human beings. Marine plastic pollution is a huge problem, with an estimated 5 tons piece of plastic now floating in the world oceans. The plastic is frequently mistaken for food by fish and birds, causing damage to life throughout the seas and entering the human food chain. Today's study found record levels of polyethylene in one area thought to come from the massive garbage patch in the Pacific Oceans. In another, it found high levels of paint and nylon particles, pointing to increased shipping and fishing. The study also found that so much plastic is now stored in Arctic sea ice, which then moves and melts, that is become a significant system for transporting plastic particles around the region. Dr. Jeremy Wilkinson, sea ice physicist at the British Antarctic Survey, described it as a benchmark study. Microplastic particles were found throughout all core sampled. It suggests that microplastics are now ubiquitous within the surface waters of the world oceans. Nowhere is immune. Comment on the text. This article, written by Matthew Taylor and published in the newspaper The Guardian, talks about the problem of microplastic in the sea. Every year, 8 million tons of plastic end up in the sea. Microplastics damage marine animals, including fish and mollusks, that end up on our table. Is our health at risk? Plastic has changed our life. It has improved them. It made space travel possible and it revolutionized medicine. It made cars and airplanes lighter, reducing fuel consumption and pollution. Adherent and light plastic wraps prolong the life of fresh food, and disposable plastic bottles provide drinking water to the poorest people. From this point of view, we could say that plastic saves lives every day. However, plastic and microplastic have a different impact on the environment and the ecosystem. Almost half of the plastic fabricated by the invention of the material has been made over the past 15 years. Microplastic, plastic microspheres with a diameter of less than 5 millimeters, have been found everywhere, from sediments of the ocean's floor to the ice floating in the Arctic. The ice that melts over the course of 10 years releases more than 1 trillion plastic particles in the sea. The sun, the wind, the waves, and they decompose these objects into smaller species, eaten by plankton, mollusks, fish, even whales. I think that this is a point which is really important for all of us because it is difficult to establish how many microplastic end up inside our organism when we eat fish. In any case, these substances are found in the air we breathe, in the water we drink, bottled or from the tap, in the food that we eat, and in the clothes that we wear. It should also be said that most of the microplastic studies so far seems to remain in the fish's stomach, without moving into the muscle tissue that we eat. The scientists are still worried about the impact of marine plastics because they degrade and fragment into nanoplastic over time. These nanoplastics are less than 100 billions of a meter, and they are almost invisible. The disturbing aspect is that these tiny particles can penetrate into the cells and move into the tissues and organs. In summary, plastic contamination reaches Earth's last wilderness, Antarctica. Often fishes and birds mistake plastic for food. This causes damage to life throughout the sea and to the human food chain. With respect to what has been said above, I am of the opinion that we must reduce plastic pollution from seas, lakes, and rivers. How? Nations can ban certain types of plastics. Chemists can develop biodegradable polymers. Consumers can avoid disposable plastic. Industries and governments can invest in infrastructure for the collection and the recycling of these materials before they reach the water.